Bro, I hit it once. It's going this
Bro,
time. All right, we're
bro,
good.
hit that record button, boy, and don't forget it.
It's hit, boy. All right, so after
My
another
God.
disappointing time of trying to record a video, talking for 45 minutes and only getting
Useless.
11 minutes worth of footage.
This is why. This
We
is
came
why
up
I'm
with
not
a
good.
new idea. We were talking about automotive stuff, and we figured, how can we branch off of that? Because we just got done talking about it. It's going to be unnatural. So we came up with a new solution. Andrew and I have an extensive history with cars. I'm 26, and you're what, 28?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And between us, we've had more cars than the average person will see in a lifetime already. It's not to brag, because most of my cars have been shit. But
We've
nonetheless,
all had some junkers.
yep. So we're going to do 1-minute car reviews, starting with Andrew now.
Me? Okay.
On each car, we're
Uh,
going to do a 1-minute review. Just bam, bam,
all right.
bam. So hit it.
All right. So my very first car was a 2007 Chevrolet Cobalt supercharged. I believe it put down 205, 215 wheels to the crank, I guess. So I don't know what it put down to the wheels. I had underglow with it. I smoked out the taillights because that was cool. I had underglow and I had lights on the inside, and they were all set up to toggle switches. So it had intake and exhaust, Megan Racing exhaust, and it was obnoxious. It was my first car. I was coming right off the Fast and the Furious. So yeah, that would be my first. It was laser blue. It was blurple basically.
How was it though? I mean, you review it.
Review. I mean, it was lightning fast for the time. I mean, it was my first car. My mom had a Jeep Liberty at the time, so anything other than that was fast. So
Yeah, I guess.
you have
Okay.
to keep that in mind. So, but it was a fantastic car. It ended up breaking a rolling lifter. Actually, is what ended up breaking in that car.
Oof.
Yeah, so that was a complete motor teardown, and warranty replaced it. And then yeah, no longer have that vehicle.
Damn. All right. Well, all right. So my first car, again, kind of coming right over. It was right around the Fast and Furious time. Obviously, that's when I started driving. It was a 1987 Nissan 300ZX, and I didn't even want this thing. My dad saw it on the side of the road for $500, running driving, so he bought it. It was a 5-speed, and he told me, here, take this car. And at this time, I was 16 years old, or 15 years old, and I didn't even have my license. And I was driving old cars up and down the lift, so he says, here, take this, learn how to drive stick in it. That way, if you screw it up, it ain't going to cost me nothing but $500. Dude, this car was awesome. It felt, when you got in it, it had like that retro spaceship feel, right?
Oh,
the gearbox was super sloppy, I ain't going to lie, all right? The clutch barely worked, so when I let off the clutch, I thought I was driving bad. I was doing everything just right, but it felt like I was a terrible driver. This thing would chatter and rock and shake and roll, and I'd have to like jam it into gear. But that was the first car. That's a car I learned how to drive stick shift in. It was slow as dirt. Okay, it was a turbo 300ZX. It was fast, I guess, for like the 80s, but it wasn't really fast. All right, so it was basically like your 140 horsepower turbo, or not non-turbo engine with like a very small turbo slapped on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first car. That's the car I learned how to drive stick in. I guess it was a great car at the time, but not when I had it.
That's actually really cool because we both our first cars were both stick.
Yeah.
So I actually took my driving class in the snow, in that car.
Oh damn.
So
see, I took my driving course or my driving class in a vehicle that they had there. I didn't get to choose.
You. Yeah, they didn't have that. They didn't have that kind of funding where I'm from. All right, next car would be funny how I actually ended up getting this car. This is a 1989 Ford Thunderbird with 160,000 miles. It did have a digital dash, which was hot.
Those are cool
for the time.
Yep.
Those are cool. Yep. So I ended up having to get this car because I got so many speeding tickets in the Cobalt. And before I was getting ready to enter technical school for automotives, my mother forced me to use all of my graduation money, or the cash that I received, to buy a car. So I believe this car was $1,000. Might have been $500. It was somewhere around there. And so we had to drive to Indianapolis at the time and pick it up. And she said because she would not be allowing me to take my Cobalt to a school that's dedicated to automotives around that kind of crowd, because my insurance at the time hit $280 a month. And that's, I mean, it gets higher than that, but that's what it was at the time because I had so many speeding tickets. Okay. So that is the first car. That car lasted roughly 3 months before it actually blew up. So I was driving back from Indianapolis down to my hometown. And I guess that particular car had a button on the side of the gear shift. It's overdrive. And I've never had a car obviously that old, or I wasn't very knowledgeable on cars at the time. And so I'm driving 70 miles per hour down the interstate, not in overdrive. So I'm basically taking out third gear. So it's not revving real high. Like it's not making anywhere, like everything seemed normal, but ended up throwing a rod. What ended up happening. So obviously, I ended up back with the Cobalt because I had no other option. But that was just
man.
basically a waste of all of my graduation money.
That sucks. All right, so my second vehicle. Now keep in mind, none of these vehicles that I initially have, I bought with my own money because my dad at the time was running like a used car lot. So I was just driving whatever I could get my hands on. Right, he was driving like a used car lot slash just starting out in the classic cars. So we had a ton of cars coming through, getting traded in and stuff. So my second car going into school was a. Actually, I don't even know if this was my second car. I can't recall what my first car in high school was. This is just one of the ones that I had at the time. So it's a 2001 Honda Accord, which everybody. I mean, I think everybody's driven a Honda Accord at some point in their life. It's just it's like the most common car. It was the most common car on the road until the Toyota Camry came out. This particular one, it wasn't my first car because I was driving this when I had my first real job, which was at Publix. This is what I drove to and from work, and it was an all right car. I mean, there was nothing special. It's a Honda Accord. There's really nothing to say about him. Cloth interior, like kind of quick, not really. It was quick for me at the time because I really didn't know what a fast car was. Like I never got to rip around in the old cars, so it got me from point A to point B. Never got me any ladies, and at one point, the end of that car's life was when I was trying to cut through a 7-Eleven parking lot, and another lady was doing the same thing in oncoming traffic. So in the 7-Eleven parking lot, I swerved to avoid her and inevitably ran into a huge post and totaled the car. Going 5 miles an hour in a parking lot, I totaled this car. So that was the saga of the Honda Accord for me.
Sheesh.
Go ahead.
All right, so my next vehicle, this is coming off of the Cobalt. The Cobalt is actually the only accident I've ever been in, knock on wood. That car, I fell asleep
Oh no.
like over 10 years ago. And the car was rolled, obviously, and then totaled. I was on the interstate by myself, like 2 o'clock in the morning. So that ended that car's life. And so when I moved to a different state, the next car ended up being a 1996 Camaro. It was complete and utter just trash. It was $500. I'm not even sure how it ran, but it did. I ended up buying it from some farmer out in the middle of Central Florida. It literally was like surrounded by corn, and there's like weeds growing in it and stuff like that. But it ran. It made it all the way home. That was probably the second worst car. Second worst car I ever owned. It was slow, ran like trash. It didn't always start, and I didn't want it, but I needed some type of mode of transportation or to get back. I was working at Winn-Dixie at the time. Or no, I'm sorry, Sweet Bay.
Grocery boys, man. Grocery boys.
Rest in peace,
Good old Sweet Bay. They had the best meat, bro.
Yeah, but that was my third vehicle.
Damn. All right, well, my next vehicle after the Honda, or sometime around the Honda, I should say, and this I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. This is one of the, looking back on it, this is one of the coolest and most comfortable cars I've ever owned and probably will ever own in my entire life. And it's a 2003 Mercury Grand Marquis.
That's the hotness.
That car was all my friends loved it. I hated driving it, dude, because I came from this. I mean, I come from cars that like a family that had cool cars all the time. You know, when I was born, my dad had a '68 Camaro, so like I've always been just into these super awesome like high end classic cars and stuff. So for me to be driving this Mercury around was like the most devastating thing. But my friends loved it. I could fit like 5 people in the car, be super comfortable, drive to parties and pull up like a grandfather, super unsuspecting. And dude, I'm telling you, those were the most comfortable seats you've ever sat in your life. And the car over the highway floated, bro. The most comfortable.
How old were you
car.
at the time?
I think I was probably 16 at the time. I was driving this car in high school. So imagine me 16 years old. Like all my friends know that my dad's got this awesome high end classic car business, and here I am driving around this Mercury Grand Marquis. Like, bro, why are you driving that, bro? I got punished. Just leave me alone. I'm getting punished.
You've been punished for
but
2
that
years.
was one of my bro. That was one of the looking back on it. I wish I had that car. I'd be driving it to this day for sure.
They're on air ride, aren't they?
Yeah, that one was super comfortable car. Yep.
Freaking hotness. So I'm coming off of the Camaro. I actually bought it for $500, sold it for $750 actually.
Okay.
And it actually, when the guy came and saw it, it actually didn't even start. But I was like, oh, we just jump in. We jumped it, started right up. So he wanted something, a project car, but like I said, made $250 off of it, whatever. So my next car was a 1998 Eclipse GSX. So it was the all-wheel drive with the turbo. It's a 4G63 motor, I believe. That is the only car. I'm not into sound systems whatsoever. As long as I can hear music, I'm comfortable. As long as it has a radio, I'm good. This car came with 2 10-inch JL subwoofers in the back. I don't remember the amp, like what the wattage of the amp is. I couldn't tell you. But all I know is it shook the glass, and I was afraid the hatch was going to break at times. listened to a lot of Black and Yellow by Wiz Khalifa during that time.
Oh my god. You know what it is, black and yellow. Yeah.
Because
Oh my god. That car did bump. I mean that song did bump.
Yeah, that it really did, especially with some subs. But that car was fantastic. I think I bought it for, I want to say, $2,500. I end up reselling it, also that one for $3,000. Funny story though, the $2,500 was the guy originally agreed to $3,000, but the harmonic balancer, it had an aftermarket harmonic balancer that was lighter, so it allowed the engine free flow, I guess more. But I guess it used a less energy in order to spin the crank.
Right.
So I guess with those aftermarket ones, the way they're made, I guess the rubber around the center, because it's the bigger ring and then the smaller ring, actually ends up slipping. So when it would, during starting and then under hard acceleration, it would actually squeak. I originally thought it was the belts. It was shredding tons of belts, whatever. So I ended up replacing it with an Advanced Auto Parts, like the proper OEM harmonic balancer.
Okay.
And I would end up getting to. So it started squeaking when the guy wanted to buy it or whatever like that. And he's like, oh, I don't want to buy it because it was squeaking. Simply because it was squeaking. So I was like, okay, no big deal. So I took it back and I was like, well, maybe I can't sell this to anybody because I need to fix the squeaking. I wouldn't want to buy a car that squeaks too because it's just annoying. So I took it off, I replaced it, and then I resold it for $300 more to a gentleman that was getting ready to be deployed. And he wanted something, I guess, to drive around here when he comes. Or no, he was going to ship it overseas with him to
that makes sense.
the country.
Okay.
So that's my Eclipse. Yeah.
Damn. All right, so you were flipping cars at a young age. You were already
it's more so. This is more so how I got the car, and less of a review of the car because
I mean, there's really nothing to review there. They were neat cars. So I do remember this I have a very fond story about this vehicle. This is probably the only vehicle in my life that I'll ever own and get rid of within 45 minutes. This is a 1989 Ford Ranger. The story behind this one, a lot of people have heard this story actually. So I owned it for more than 45 minutes. I only drove it for about 45 minutes. This is a truck that I was big into mudding back then. We were going off road a lot, and we would spend our weekends out in a big field with a huge bonfire, and everybody had a lifted truck, and we'd have to go four-wheeling to get out there. So my dad and I found this Ford Ranger and kind of turned it into like a little project that we were going to work on, and we were going to lift it and do all this stuff. Wound up buying a set of like 33-inch mud boggers for it, and this is gonna be like my actual high school vehicle, like the one that I drove to and from school. Just the most redneck looking, like come to axe murder your family looking truck you've ever seen in your life. So we start working on it. I get it for like a day, and I drive it to school for the first day, and it was a Friday after school, and this thing was a big, huge pile of shit. It was like the first year that they had the electronic four-wheel drive, so that barely worked. Like I had to jostle the transmission to make that work and stuff. It was just crazy. So we get off school. We're all going out to this place called Anclote near us, where we used to go off-roading all the time. And I decided that I'm going to test out my new truck, which only had mud tires in the back, mind you. So it was sitting like this. It had 33-inch mud tires in the back with like the factory wheels up front because I couldn't fit them. We were planning on lifting it, but I never did. So it was just the most goofy-looking truck. I get out there and I'm like ripping it around, and I decided to go through this puddle what I thought was a puddle. I decided to go through it to see what the truck could do if I could make it through it. Bro, tell me why the air intake was right below the headlight, which was a foot off the ground. As soon as I went into that puddle, I hydrolocked the motor and it was toast. The whole truck was junked. That was it. That truck sucked. They built that truck to go off road, and then they put a freaking air intake down in the ground.
Ford Ranger to go off roading?
Yeah, man, it was a 4x4 Ford Ranger.
Huh.
That was like the old school 4x4. That was the hotness, man. It was like a Jeep. Jeez. But yeah, that was my Ford Ranger. Big pile of shit. Big one.
So coming off the Eclipse, I found my first love, a 1993 300ZX. Till this day, a timeless car. It's the predecessor to your 80-some, your late 80s.
No, not the predecessor. This is the successor.
Successor, I'm sorry.
Yep. That car, fun fact, and I mentioned this in our failed podcast that we did before this one, but that car's headlights got used on the Lamborghini Diablo.
I believe
you didn't know that. Yeah.
Sexy car. To this day, I would still buy another one. It was similar to, I guess, the cockpit style, to where everything kind of faces the driver.
Yep.
It's just a classy looking. It's like I said, it's timeless.
I feel like a rocket ship when you get in them things, man. It's like a space
and
shuttle.
It's the way you like sit in it. I don't know. It's got, for being how low it is, how like streamlined it is, you can actually see really, really well in the car. Yep. I love sliding that thing around the corner. I would go, like, when it was wet, I would drive around like the parking lot. I would stay away from your poles because obviously you have they're pretty easy to hit.
Yeah, dude, that thing came right out in front of me.
I think it was maroon. I didn't do a single thing to it. That car, I think I just broke even on it. Yeah, there was nothing made on that car when I got rid of it, but
They're
it had T-tops and everything. That crap sounds cool. Like, it's a convertible. Oh, it's T-tops. But in our particular state, if you remove them and you drive to the beach, it's just you're like an hour in and you're like, why did I do that?
Yep.
Like, why did I do that?
Absolutely miserable.
But love that car.
So I actually a similar thing with my next vehicle after the Ranger. When after that mishap, I got a Jeep Wrangler, my first Jeep Wrangler, and this is before we got into the Jeep business. Obviously, this is back in high school still. So I had this Jeep, and we were going off roading with that thing, and it was awesome. That Jeep made it through some stuff. Had a lot of fun with it. It was a hardtop Sahara, like the Hunter Green. Not comfortable at all. No Jeep is comfortable. Don't let anybody fool you into thinking a Jeep's comfortable or not.
No.
I got it. The girls that I was hanging out with the time always wanted to ride in it and stuff. So that was super cool. I felt really cool, man. But me and my buddy at the time, we both had Jeeps, so we would go out to Anclote and just all go off roading all the time. And same thing. As soon as I took the hardtop off, I regretted it immediately because it was so damn hot. Miserable, dude. It was absolutely miserable.
That stuff's cool for about 30 seconds.
It really is, yeah. My current Jeep, which I'll talk about that in a little bit, I still don't take the top off that. It sucks. It sucks.
It's a pain in the butt.
But
I forgot to mention.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I forgot to mention on 300ZX. I had those things were prone to injector failure. So in order to replace an injector on that car, you have to replace that entire plenum on the front, which is over 45 pounds. So you have to actually stand on the front bumper and like hoist it over. But I guess what happened was I replaced one, and then the second one went out, and then I did a little bit of Googling on the forums, and I guess they all will eventually go out until they kept going out. But the problem is that they're $143 a piece still to this day.
Yeah, they're not. Those cars are not easy to work on. We had one in the shop, and the guy spent a fortune getting it running right.
I learned a lot about just I guess my fortitude and being able to like really focus.
Well, those cars were super, dude. So that was one of the fastest cars made in its year. I mean, we could talk about 300ZX all day. They're fascinating cars. They're super technologically advanced.
Yes, they had the Hikest where it technically it wasn't 4-wheel drive, but it would help.
The rear wheels move just a couple degrees to help. Most people disable that now. It's totally useless. Yeah. They're so expensive to fix. But anyway, that's a different topic for another day. Go ahead with your next car because you cut into my Jeep.
Yes, sir. So my next car was my probably my third favorite love. It'd be the 2005 Subaru STI.
Yeah,
the car
that we met on.
Yep, the car that we met on. I bought that car with 83,000 miles. It had an NVIDIA full exhaust. We're talking headers all the way back. I mean, that alone's a couple grand. Yep. The previous owner did. Stock wheels, and then AM intake, which obviously is another $200. Very high quality parts on it. It was just had a stage 2 off the shelf map tune from an access port. Made a little over 300 horsepower. It's like 302, 304 to the wheels, and then 357 torque or something like that. That car ended with some minor aesthetic upgrades. I ended up putting a 75 shot of nitrous on it.
So ridiculous. That's so ridiculous.
It actually still ended up, even though it was dumping a crap ton of fuel, because I didn't have the access port, so I couldn't switch back between like a kill mode and like an eco mode or anything like that. Yeah. It still got 20 to 21 miles per gallon on the highway, which is not terrible considering it was dumping so much fuel.
No, I mean that's good.
Because it was a wet kit, so I had it mixed in with the fuel, the injectors itself. It wasn't just dumping into the intake like you see most people.
So you had it opening up at a certain throttle position, I would.
Yeah, so it would only open up if I was above 4,000 RPMs and over 75% throttle.
Gotcha.
So it was awesome. That car ended up putting down. It was 415. I think I still have the dyno graph. 415 horsepower to the wheels and like 470 torque. It was a complete monster.
That's crazy.
The only downside is to it. So I had it was like a cheaper bottle warmer. So I'd have to activate that, and obviously you lose pressure. It wasn't a good enough bottle warmer, so it couldn't keep the pressure. Like the first run would be fast, the second run would be fast, and then the third it would just fall off. Like it would be done. The pressure.
That's the problem with nitrous is not consistent. If you want consistent power, you better find a different way.
It's just cheap power.
It is cheap. It is cheap power.
You tune it safe.
Yeah. Yeah, when you just pull enough timing out of it, you're good to go. But so actually, it leads me into my ownership of a Subaru, and we actually owned our Subarus at the same time. That's how we met, was through the Subaru Club. But I had a 2003 WRX wagon, which was like a weird purple black. In the right light, it was purple. When I bought it, I thought it was black. They fooled me. I won that auction, by the way, on eBay for 1 penny. I sniped them at the last second. I won that auction for a penny. That was astounding.
Dirty.
I didn't think we won it. I'm sitting there like
That's
looking
dirty.
at it, and my dad's like, "Did you win? Did you win?" And we're sitting there waiting to see if we won this car. And yeah, sure as shit, won it by a penny. So I was driving that right out of high school. I was 17 years old, coming out of high school, just about to turn 18, and that's when I met Andrew and all my other friends really. With the exception of a couple. But that car was, it was all right. I mean, I liked having the space. I did like having space. The rear seats folded back. I had the whole entire bed. I think if I was going to buy another Subaru, it would probably be a wagon. I'd never buy another Subaru, but it would definitely be a wagon if I had to buy one. They were super utilitarian. I do, man. Wagons are, that's the only wagon second wagon. I've only owned 2 wagons, and that was the first, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
What were you putting in the back? What do you want in the space for? Groceries? Like I'm trying to figure
anything. I mean, God, I moved my entire. When we moved, my parents, I loaded up the whole back of that car with like a ton of shit, just an unbelievable amount of shit. My car was rubbing the ground, like the amount of stuff that I had, because I had that car lowered on lowering springs. The car was full sag by the time I loaded that thing up. You could fit a lot of stuff back there, man.
Looking sexy.
A lot of stuff. It was goofy. I mean, when I opened that hatch up and you saw all the stuff back there, it was definitely good. It was like the National Lampoons, but or Griswold or something.
Griswold.
Go for it. What you got next?
All right, so I actually ended up getting rid of the Subaru. I broke even, paid that off. But the lady and her boyfriend at the time actually accidentally gave me extra $400.
How?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I didn't know until it was like an hour and a half away is where we sold it. So I was already 3/4 of the way home by the time I found out. But that's unfortunate. So technically, I made money on the car. Technically, but it was just pay it off and get rid of it. I went from that into the number one most regretful car I've ever owned. And I owned it for a total of right under 3 months.
Oh shit!
It's a 2010 Jeep Wrangler. That is the worst vehicle on this planet, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I know you got a lot of Jeep people out there, but I've experienced quite a bit of cars since then. Until this day, it's still the worst car. Uncomfortable. This car had a little bit bigger wheels on it.
You can't call it a car. It's a Jeep. You can't call it a car.
Yeah. Stock wheels. It had a little bit bigger tires on it. So it was a 2-door hardtop, and the hardtop was paint matched. But it was an unlimited. So the hardtop normally comes the matte gray.
It can't be an unlimited if it's a 2-door. The unlimited is a 4-door.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sport.
Sport. Okay.
Sorry,
Sport. Yeah.
Sport. Yeah, you're right. It was a sport, but it was the base. It was the base is what I'm getting at. The 2-door base with a hard, but they had the hard top paint matched. I went off roading twice, and it was fun both times. It was not fun to clean them and take, but it was cool. You could take the whole thing apart. I did go to the beach one time with the top off, and it's miserable. So that lasted not very long. I got rid of that vehicle within a couple weeks after I was coming back from school, and I was getting on the highway. And it was a toll. So you had basically 2 lanes merging into one that then had an on-ramp that hit the highway. And I put it to the floor because I was a little bit ahead of a vehicle just so I can get out of their way. And this Corolla just walked my ass. Which I know with the Jeep is not supposed to be fast, but that felt so... That hit me a certain way. Like I said,
coming off faster vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, and this is probably like, I don't know, 6 years ago maybe. Probably 6 years ago. And like it was not a good experience.
No, those 3.8 motors are trash. Anybody that's got a Jeep and has a 3.8 motor, I need you to know that your Jeep engine sucks. The 3.6 was better.
The gallon.
Oh, terrible.
Terrible. At 65 to 70 on it, and I don't typically drive under the speed limit exact. That's the best gas mileage I can get. Yeah. It was horrible.
It blows my mind even to this day that we decided to buy a Jeep with a 3.8 liter in it, and then we put 37s on it and re-geared it. That thing's a pig. But it blows my mind that people still pay as much money for those Jeeps in that year range that they had that 3.8. Blows my mind they pay that kind of money for them because they are junk. They really are.
It was 18 or 19,000 was what I bought for.
They're still going for about that much with decent mileage. It's insane.
I believe it. I believe it.
But oh man, so my next vehicle. This is a really weird one. I don't even remember how we got this. I think it was a trade-in, and I didn't have a car at that time because I had just gotten rid of. I blew up the Subaru. I forgot to mention that the Subaru ended tragically with a blown motor. So I was again bouncing back and forth between cars, and this was one that we took in. It was a 1989 Mercedes 560 SEC, which it's probably the Mercedes that you've never heard of. I don't know if did you ever see that car? It was a 2-door, really long wheelbase Mercedes that I had.
This one didn't have curtains in the back, right? That's a different car. There's one that you had
No,
curtains.
I don't
I
remember
thought.
what I had. Yeah, I probably did. That's probably the car that I couldn't remember what it was. But
Had curtains.
the car that I'm talking about was like a really weird, like long wheelbase, super long 2-door car.
Mm-mm. I don't think
It
I
was a
ever-
big V8 in it. Oh, the Jaguar. That's the other car. All right.
That's the car.
Yeah. So the Jaguar was before all this. I'll get to that one next. But the Mercedes had it was a really cool car, and it got up and went for the size, but it was a gas hog, man. But it was a stylish car. It was a stylish car for sure. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's a 1989 Mercedes 560 SEC. Super cool looking car. And I think if I had the money aside from my current BMW, I think I probably would have built that one up. That was a neat car. Comfortable too. But
I don't remember that car. I'm gonna look it up myself.
look it up. Yeah, it was cool. I'm gonna get something going here on the podcast where I can share pictures and stuff. I gotta figure that out. But that car, look it up. It was neat. You never seen one before, guaranteed.
So I went from the Wrangler. I had that for 3 months and immediately went into the most practical thing anybody can buy. It was a 2014 Toyota Corolla 6-speed.
Oh my gosh.
I was getting 43 miles to the gallon, and that's like ripping it. So it was like a little go-kart. But I was commuting over 45 minutes Monday through Thursday for classes and stuff like that. So I wanted something economically reliable.
It was a sensible car.
Yeah, I took that car to, let's see here. It went to Texas. It went to California. It went to Colorado. It went to the Smokies probably 4 times. Like I took that car all over the United States, and like obviously my travel expense would be like the California back. I think it was like $310 or something like that, and that's a round trip. So and I'd zipped in that car. Like it looked all right. I mean, it's meant to be a commuter car. Like it's meant for the good gas mileage. So like it was perfect in what I needed for the time. I had that car for 4 years before I got rid of it. But its name was Tina because it was a dirty little whore that it was.
Oh gosh.
It got ran through. It got taken everywhere. Like
oh my god.
Everywhere. It was fantastic. The car would just sip on gas. So like went from, I guess, one extreme to another. Like the most ridiculous, obnoxious thing to most sensible. But I mean, I recommend that car for anybody looking something cheap that's reliable, and if anything breaks on it, which it won't, but if it does, you can find it probably.
Everything's like $100 to fix.
Everything's $100.
So cheap. So cheap.
New radiator, $100.
Yep.
New alternator, probably $20-$30.
Number one most sold car. Well, number 2 most sold car aside from the Camry. But yeah, there was a sensible, very sensible car. I forgot
a Camry. Yes.
I forgot a big one on my list. That Honda Pilot that we beat the hell out of.
I love that thing. You still have it?
No, we finally sold it. We finally sent it to auction after what 12 years of owning. I don't know, somebody who needed a vehicle, but I beat the hell. That thing has seen the worst of everything that you could throw at a vehicle. We drove that thing with like 100 and my dad bought it at auction. My dad bought it at auction with 89,000 miles. He paid like $1,500 for this thing, dude. Super clean car, and I drove this thing everywhere. Miles and miles and miles. I think by the time we finally sold it, it had 245,000 miles on it. Something like that. Something crazy. Some astronomically crazy number. We drove that car, you and I and a couple of other people. We took that car on our first road trip that we did together, and it ran flawlessly with like 180,000 miles.
You think about it now, how reckless actually what? Like that wasn't not reckless, but like how...
it was sketchy. It was sketchy, but we didn't care at the time, dude. We were just some kids doing some stupid shit, but it was so much fun driving that thing around. And it was, man, I had some good times in that car.
Did you know?
Some good times. Yeah.
That
was a good vehicle, man. Very good vehicle. The Honda Pilot, if you need a family vehicle, I'm sure the new ones are just as reliable, but man, you take care of them things and they will take care of you.
I think they look like CRV. They called
the CRV? Pilot's a bigger CRV. Yeah, the Pilot is the big CRV, like a full size SUV.
It like looks like a van, but not. It's like an SUV. It like
the Pilot's very square.
Yeah, but it's like a van and a SUV had a baby, right? It's like
yeah, kind of. It had third row seating.
It doesn't know what it wants to be.
So our buddy, it was supposed to be a guy's trip. I'm going to talk about this North Carolina trip. Our buddy. Yeah. All right, so we're supposed to take this guy's road trip. All guys. We're doing it big. We're going out. We're having a good time. And last minute, my buddy decides that his girlfriend won't let him go by himself or something. I don't remember what the story was. So he says, "Hey guys, I got to bring my girlfriend." I said, "No, there's no way." Huh?
Couldn't say no. What it was?
That's what it was. He couldn't say no. Yeah, So anyway, I'm like, dude, there's no way. Nobody's bringing their girlfriend. I'm not bringing. I think I had one at the time. I don't remember. Probably not actually. I know you had one at the time because you've been with her forever. We're like, nobody's bringing their girlfriends. You're not bringing her, dude. Just come. Let's go. We're just be a man and let's go. No. I got to bring her. I'm like, all right, listen. Here's the deal. You can bring her, but she's sitting all the way in the back with the luggage. That's what's happening here. Because she is baggage. She's considered baggage. You're putting her in the back with the rest of the shit. All right. So we went on this road trip, and she sat back there squished between between the wall of the pilot and like 5 suitcases. Just squished between back there. And I'm sitting there chain smoking on the way there. She's catching all this shit. She's got no window to breathe out of. I don't think she could even put the seatbelt on.
Which is good though. So
and
she probably.
Yeah, that's true. But she had to keep her mouth shut that whole ride. I think she might have said three words because I was going all. I was like, she knew I was pissed that she was coming. She knew it. And so did her boyfriend. So did the
That was a newer relationship too, wasn't it? It wasn't even anything.
That man in new relationships is a whole different story. We'll get on. Let's go talk about our cars again.
All right. So
so what did you have?
I go from the Corolla to I guess another extreme. So this is probably my most favorite vehicle out of everything. I think this is a 2018 Dodge Charger Hellcat.
Oh yeah, okay.
700 horsepower to the crank, like probably I don't know 650, 670 to the wheels, somewhere around there. Probably a little less than that. But that car, I don't believe, and I'm all about freedom. I don't believe that you should be able to walk in, and I'm going to preface this again, I'm really comfortable with speed as well.
Okay.
I don't believe you should be able to walk into a Dodge dealership and any Joe Schmo should be able to buy this vehicle and within about 2 hours drive off the lot with it.
That's a lot of car.
It's a lot of car. I mean, you're talking about a car that weighs over 4,000 pounds.
We actually did a review on. We did a full. Andrew and I did a full in-depth review on that car. This is when we first broke into trying to do YouTube. We've made multiple attempts, but on our channel, if you go back in our legacy playlist, you'll see Dodge Hellcat full review. That's Andrew and I sitting in that car for like a solid hour, talking shit about that car. Like
it did a lot of views.
It did 10,000 something views. That was we talked about the car in depth. There was a lot to it.
If you want to know like our actual opinion on that car, fantastic. I have nothing bad to say. FCA, I think, is the only people actually pushing boundaries. That particular motor does so well. So they're throwing it in the Durango this year. Like they're putting that thing in there, and then they just announced the Dodge Ram, the freaking 1500 Dodge Ram TRX has the Hellcat motor.
Be so badass.
Like that motor right there. It's like really. I think it's going to force other people, like other auto manufacturers, to start just doing something different because they're the only people really pushing the high horsepower stuff at a decent price for what you're getting.
Yeah.
But that car 0 to 60 is like 3.6 seconds in perfect condition. Like there's just people call it a hog, or not a hog, but they call it a boat and stuff like that. But bro, that boat is like killing kids, taking people to Gappleby.
It's a fantastic straight line vehicle, but you ain't setting any Nürburgrings.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah, but you're sitting there floating at 70 on the highway, and within
it's comfortable.
You're $140, $130, bro. Wow.
A lot of power instantaneously. Yeah, it was a cool car. It was definitely fun.
A lot of useless power.
Exactly.
Useless.
Yes, precisely. All right. Well, my next car is not nearly as exciting as that. Well, actually, it is kind of exciting. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm going to talk about my Jaguar. Okay, so it's not exciting. I had this 2000. I had this super classy. So you in British cars. So I knew you had an affinity for British cars deep down. So I had a 2001 Jaguar XJ8. Yet another vehicle that we took in on trade. I think we actually traded the. Wait a minute. I got too many cars on this. Anyway, I don't know what the hell we traded for this thing. I think we just bought it outright cheap. So I drove this for a while. Big 4-door saloon car, super comfortable. Again, I've had a ton of these. Yeah, it had curtains in the back. That was a dope car. So I was driving this thing around, feeling like I was some sort of Englishman or something. Always wanting to be a little more classy, a step above the rest. It wasn't a supercharged one. I always wish it was a supercharged one because those were cool.
Sleeper.
I mean, those were like 350 horsepower to the rear wheels. Neat cars, man. But no, that was not. Huh?
I say you just wouldn't expect it if it was supercharged.
No, exactly. It's total sleeper. But yeah, it had the V8. It made a nice noise, and it was really comfortable. The only gripe I have with that car is the back seat had leg room for days. For days. It was like an executive car. The front seat, though, you couldn't scoot that seat back far enough. My knees were in the dash at any given point in time. And for that size of a car, that's unacceptable.
They were definitely focusing on the people in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. It had trays. It had trays that folded down so you could eat your lunch. Like, bro, what car has that? Like, Maybachs have that shit. Yeah. on
Yeah,
like an airplane. It had trays that fold down.
Driver. You're supposed to have a
Exactly.
driver in that car.
I think they missed the mark with that car because we bought that thing for like $3,500.
Oh man, did you make money on that or no?
Yeah, I think we sold it for $7 or something like that.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
it was a clean car, man. Super clean. Very low miles. So comfortable. Aside from my legroom issue, super comfortable. But that was my Jaguar.
Well, I went from the Hellcat to more family, I guess. Even though the Charger's pretty much family, but I had the Hellcat for probably about 2 years, and I went into a 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited. That only lasted 9 months. Usually, there's a problem I have. Like this is, I can't stick to a car very, very long. But that car, I mean, it was a Jeep Grand Cherokee. 10 times better. I would recommend that over a Wrangler any day.
Oh yeah, 100%. Two different animals.
I would almost prefer. I mean, I would almost prefer not to drive at all if I had to get a Wrangler again. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I would prefer to walk, maybe take a bicycle to work or something like that. That's how much I despise that vehicle.
They are
the
not good.
Cherokee, I recommend, and they do have a Hellcat variant, which is called the Trackhawk. So 700 horsepower and a Jeep Grand Cherokee, but it's all-wheel drive.
That is not reasonably priced at all.
No, they want
a $110, I think, for like the Trackhawk.
I think like 68, 67 now. Like if you got
really?
if you got like miles on them, yeah, you get like a 2017, 2018. It's not as bad. It's still, it's the fastest. What SUV is faster than that on the market?
Well, there isn't one right now.
Not yet.
Even back when they were doing the Cherokee SRT8s, they were the fastest SUV on the market. Those things were badass.
Cherokees, because you get all the comfort and you get the power, you get the all-wheel drive, and I don't know how they are off-road. I mean,
they're not meant at all for off-road. You can't drive that off-road.
I mean, you can't rock. I mean, you could drive that off-road, right?
I wouldn't. The dude, the freaking the body panel sits so low on that thing. You have no ground clearance. It's not an off-road vehicle at all. That's a family SUV with a ton of power. Is all that is. Love it.
Fantastic. You're in that family life.
All that is. From the Jaguar, I went into a Saab. It was a 2001. Was it a 2001 Saab 9.3 turbo? I drove that for a very long time. That car was surprisingly quick for what it was, and I hate front-wheel drive cars. But that thing, you could be cruising down the highway at 120, 130 miles an hour. You wouldn't even know it. Super surprising. And that was another hatchback. I mean, that was the hatchback I was talking about earlier. Big, fat, ugly hatchback, and it would float, man.
What happened to Saab?
What, the company?
Are they still making vehicles?
I think they're out now. I think they're done.
Are they out?
Yeah.
I literally haven't seen a Saab.
No, Volvo's kicking Saab's ass is what's going on.
Volvo's
Saab's gone. Volvo makes a nice car.
A lot of ads from Volvo lately.
Yeah.
A lot of really nice ads.
They got some very nice looking cars. I was telling Kara that I would want to. That's my girlfriend, Kara. I was telling her that I want to get maybe one of the new ones at some point when we go to buy a new car.
SUV?
Yeah, they're nice.
Or wagon.
They're nice.
Wagon.
Or wagon, yeah. Or wagon.
God.
But yeah, that Saab was that's another reliable car if you take care of it. And it's not the weird 5-cylinder. Oh, Volvo does a 5-cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
I think Saab has a 5-cylinder, but it's not that one. It was the 9.3 turbo.
I think,
or was it a 9.5? I don't even remember. I don't drive it anymore.
I think that bothers a lot of people.
5-cylinder? It just doesn't make sense.
It's a prime number. It just doesn't. It's not comfortable.
It doesn't make sense at all.
You're an uncomfortable vehicle.
Are you out of vehicles? Oh no, you're not. I still have one.
I got one more.
You got one more? Oh my god, dude! I still have 1, 2, 3. I still have 4. Sheesh.
I got 12. I mean, it's 11 or 12 vehicles. So my current vehicle, I had the Grand Cherokee for 9 months, and moving from the Hellcat to the Cherokee wasn't fitting for myself. It's kind of like there's levels of things, I guess. Like once you experience a certain level of thing, and then you grab something else, and it's not at least matching or better than it in your eyes, then it feels subpar.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely nothing wrong with the Grand. Like there was absolutely nothing wrong with the Jeep. It's fantastic. It looked good. It looked decent enough. Like it just was.
You know what was wrong with the Jeep is you couldn't drive up to your little wine bars and look like you're fitting in. That's what it was. You look like the brokest bastard at the wine bar is what happened.
What wine bar I go to?
Cooper's Hawk. Don't even tell me about that. What is it?
That's
every time I see you got a little flight of wine and.
You talk a lot of trash about wine, but I see you.
You know what wine I buy? You know what wine I buy? I go to the gas station. I buy the cheapest wine on the shelf, and I try that.
Wine from a gas station.
100%.
Damn heathen.
Mm-hmm.
He's a heathen.
Yep.
He's a heathen.
You're never gonna see me paying $50 for a bottle of wine or some crazy shit like that, unless it's a real big bottle.
$50 for a bottle of wine.
Well,
Ever. No chance.
Yeah.
My like it's around like my average is like 10, $12.
Bro,
But
that's not suitable for the car you're driving, or the vehicle you're driving. You need to step them numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. That's Grand Cherokee numbers. You better step that shit up. Tell them what you're driving now. Tell them what you're driving in that fancy wine bar.
Not that fancy. So I have a 2018 Land Rover Range Rover Dynamic. So why you gotta make that face?
Land Rover, Range Rover. It's a Range Rover. You're
you're
telling me that thing's got 3 different names?
This is the problem. Yes, it does. This is the problem. Everyone always see a car go by. Oh, that's a Range Rover. A Range Rover is a model. The brand is Land Rover. That's the brand.
That's ignorant.
They'll see an Evoque, or they'll see a Velar, or they'll see a Discovery, and like, oh, you have a Range Rover. The Range Rover is a model. There's only 2 Range Rovers. That's it. Those other things are all Land Rovers. Not the same thing. Regardless,
I wouldn't buy a British SUV. God forbid I did. It would fall apart on the road.
Dodge Charger. What was it? Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat. That was the full name of that car. So this one is a Land Rover Range Rover Sport Dynamic. So it's a little longer.
That sounds so stupid.
I would never say it. I would just say Range Rover. I wouldn't say anything else.
But why? It's a Land Rover.
Yeah, but you're
all right. Okay, I'm not gonna get into that. I see why. It's just like calling it a Charger. But it is stupid. It's stupid to have that many names for a vehicle.
Charger, and you grab it, and someone see you pull it. Why'd you call it a Charger? They look at you crazy. I wouldn't call this like. Regardless, it's a Range Rover.
All right. Okay. Tell us more.
V8 supercharged, a little over 500 horsepower. It's got a refrigerator in it.
A refrigerator? It's not a refrigerator. It's got one of them refrigerators in it.
It's got one of them refrigerators.
Put my natty ice right in there. Keeps it cool all day.
It's probably. I think it's the nicest vehicle I've ever owned. And it's I've only owned it with like 3 or 4 weeks. And I love everything about it. I can honestly see. I know I've probably said this a dozen times with every single one of these vehicles, but this is a vehicle that I'm going to keep for a long time.
That's what you think. I think that Range Rover's got different plans, though. It's British. Don't forget.
It's got 100,000 mile. It's a CPO. So
listen, I didn't say it would break down. You wouldn't be able to get it repaired. I'm just saying you're going to be spending a lot of time driving that thing to and from the.
I got my SOS button, and then I got Land Rover Concierge. I hit that button, Land Rover comes out, they drop off a Range Rover to me, and I'm out.
I don't know how they stay in business. They must do a lot of driving on them concierge drivers.
That car, boy, that car is so sexy.
I'm sure it's super comfortable. I'm sure it is.
Oh man, you turn off the car, and the car lowers for you, so that you don't, like, when you step out, they don't want you to hurt your knees. They want it to be a soft landing when you step out. They don't want you to be up in the air or nothing. It's nice.
I need that for my shin splints.
I love that thing.
It'd be nice.
Gas, I mean, it holds 27. Oh my God, it holds. I thought the Jeep held 24 gallons of gas. This thing holds 27.3.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of gas.
Definitely a lot of gas, and you got to put premium in that thing too. Ooh, God, think about that. What's premium right now? 270.
Yeah, 260, 270, somewhere around
260.
there. I mean, that's what the Hellcat had.
You're paying $60 for a tank of gas in that thing right now. And gas is cheap.
It'd be 51.
Wait till that shit gets up to $3.
That's why you go to BJ's and you get that 30, 40 cents off.
You're putting BJ's gas in your car. Oh my God.
It's still 93. What do you mean BJ's gas? There's only so many people that need petroleum. I don't know what you're like.
Who's BJ getting their gas from?
I don't know. I don't know who BP gets their gas from. BP? Yeah, but
was that serious?
I don't know who they get their gas from. Sunoco?
Tehran or something like that. No. The BP oil spill, BP pumps their own damn gas.
I mean, either they pump their own gas or they own the sister company. I mean, what I'm saying is that BP could be selling gas to BJ's. I don't know.
They might, but I'm just saying, dude, I wouldn't feel comfortable rolling up to a BJ's and getting some discount gas. Not for a performance vehicle. It's discount gas.
You get the discount when you buy stuff at BJ's.
Bro, BJ's sucks. I ain't gonna lie. You can only go in there. You try to buy meat at BJ's, bro. That meat's like 4 months old. Shit's gross. That's a poor people. That's a poor people's Sam's Club, is what that is.
BJ's?
Yeah, BJ's is trash. Bro, we gotta go. Okay, when you come down here this weekend, we're going to BJ's, and I'm gonna show you the state of that place. It
might
disgusting.
be BJ's.
It's a Tampa. Everything in Tampa's dingy. But
thank you. I'm so
all right. So Orlando's dingy too.
not like
we'll have that conversation in another podcast. But for right now, I still got 4 more cars on my list that I need to hit, and they're all well. Actually, I could knock this one off. It's another Jeep Wrangler. We talked about that already. This one's lifted 6 inches, got 37s, and it's currently not working.
That's what Jeep's supposed. Wait, what happened to it?
The shocks in the rear, we retrofitted some truck shocks to it, and they're knocking and making all sorts of noise.
I thought I had Skyjacker.
It did. I tore it off and put some $300 a piece shocks on it. To try to make it a little more comfortable and capable, but now it just doesn't work at all. So it works. It just makes a ton of noise.
It doesn't matter how much money you throw those things; they're never gonna ride.
No, it's a short wheelbase and it's 2 full size. I mean, two axles. I mean, it's terrible. It's horrible. Anyway, so the next this is when I started getting into my performance cars. I guess was like right around this time. So I had a 1968 Pontiac Firebird. That's one that I got way back in high school, and it's been a project car ever since. And it's probably never going to not be a project car. That was a car that my dad bought me for my high school graduation because he wanted the project car that we could both work on together, like a classic car that I could keep.
Sexy.
So we did that. It's got an LS1 with LS3 heads. It's a nice car, super nice car actually. We painted it. My dad and I painted it ourselves. That was the first car I ever sprayed paint on. Not much else to say. I mean, it's being held up right now by the interior, but it's mostly ready to go. I've driven it around the parking lot a couple of times. That's about
I've heard this for 6 years that it's been ready to go. 7 years?
It's been a long time.
It's been ready to go for a while.
And in the meanwhile, while I had the Firebird, we actually restored a 1987 Buick Grand National that was supposed to be for my mother. This is an interesting story. So my mom, before she met my dad, she was engaged to a gentleman who had a 1987 Buick Grand National. This guy spent all of his spare time working on this car and didn't pay my mother any attention. So when she met my father, she was working in a hair salon, decided to dump this guy and go for my father. They shortly thereafter got married, and little did she know that my father was big into classic cars as well. They popped me out and my sister, and then fast forward like 20-something years, my dad thinks it's a good idea to build this Grand National for her so she has something to drive around classic car-wise. This is still when we were doing the classic cars, mind you. So his idea was to get myself and my mother, since we do a lot of driving, 2 classic cars that are reliable to daily drive. Well, my mom didn't want anything to do with the Grand National. My dad and I stopped working on the Firebird, and at this point in time, we were doing really well with the business. This was right before everything tanked. So my dad was like, you know what, you've done a lot for the shop. You got the shit up and running really through Facebook and all this other stuff. Just take the Grand National. Your mom's not going to drive it. I don't want to sell it right now because we're never going to get our money back. Just take that and drive that. So I wound up with this 87 Buick Grand National. Still have it to this day, trying to sell it. It was a cool car. It never ran right. It never really did what the Grand Nationals were known to do, which was destroy pretty much everything else on the road. I don't know what the deal was with it. It ran strong, but it wasn't all there. So that car is for sale. It runs good now. I just don't want to drive it because now that it's running good and I actually start driving it, something's going to go wrong with it. And then I won't be able to sell it. So that's the Grand National. I have recently undertaken a new project, which I bought about 2 years ago. It's a 1989 BMW 325i E30.
You're stuck in the 80s, my guy.
Bro, the 80s. Everybody says the 80s they had nothing to really provide. They had some badass cars. No, that was a year of the sleeper cars. Nobody really knew that they would have cool cars, and until 2020 when people started really appreciating the 80s cars. Anyway, 89 E30. I stuck a turbo kit on it. Finally got it running. Stuck a turbo kit on it, and that's my current project. I drive that every day. I just got the body work done literally today. So that's going to be wrapped, and that'll be my daily driver. And then
which I'm going to get to ride in this weekend.
Yeah, finally. Like I said, it's not going to impress you. It might impress you for what it is, but it's not going to be like blow your socks off. Holy shit, this thing flies! Like
I can respect the build.
That's a real build. That car I bought with it was a rolling chassis with an engine in it, but the engine was shot. I mean, it threw a rod or something like that. The wiring, the fuse box was hacked together. Whoever owned it before me did a terrible job on this car. It was a rat's nest of wiring. I had to cut the whole fuse box out, which included there was a fuse box and the engine harness. That whole thing had to go. So I had to go get a new motor first. Had to get an engine harness with the motor. Then had to find a fuse box. Wound up buying this stuff out of a convertible, not knowing that it was different from the coupe.
Yeesh.
What a disaster, dude. So we're sitting there trying to match up the wires and nothing's matching up. And at this time I didn't really have the drive to like look through the schematics and stuff, so we kind of just rigged it. And we got like 80% of the wires hooked up properly, and then there were still like 20% of the wires left over that we had to figure out. So the car got that far and then just sat for like a year and a half. And I finally was like on the verge of like ready to sell it. I didn't know what to do with it. It was sitting there. I never thought I'd have the drive to finish it. So I'm like, man, I'm just going to sell this car. And Kara's like, no, you cannot sell that car. You need to get it done. Like, I want that car to be on the road. And she kind of gave me like the motivation I needed to finish it. So one day I got a wild hair up my ass and decided to like pull. It was sitting in the way back of the shop, which, I mean, our shop's 30,000 square feet. The back part of it alone is probably 10,000 square feet of just storage space with a big covering overhead. So the car's sitting back there collecting dust. I get a wild hair up my ass with this coronavirus thing to pull it out and start working on it. So we had like a week of downtime where I didn't have anything to do. My dad had nothing to do. He's man in the front. I went out back and just started working on this car. And all this knowledge that I never even knew I had, I pulled out of my ass and got this car to where it is now running, which was super impressive in and of itself. Then I did the next completely logical thing, which is buy an eBay turbo kit, and I stick an eBay turbo kit on this freshly built motor. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but it runs, bro. That thing, it flies for what it is.
Did you dyno it or no?
Yeah, 300 horsepower to the rear wheels.
Oh,
that's a true
so
300.
Like 340, 330 to the crank, probably.
Yeah, just about somewhere around there. Yeah, and that's on 86 or 87 octane. That's not even on a 93 octane tune. 14 pounds of boost.
How many pounds? 14? Is that pushing the turbo?
That's 14. No, it's not pushing the turbo. So the GT35 is actually happy at higher boost ranges.
Oh, wait, is that Garrett?
Yeah, originally it's a Garrett GT35. So it's a Chinesium freaking
version of it.
Yeah,
okay, so you're good on fuel too?
Good on fuel. Yeah, it's not terrible.
No, what I'm saying is like you have plenty of fuel, like they can crank it up.
Oh yeah. So I've got 60-pound injectors. I've got the Walbro 255. Okay. I can run that. I can that built that setup. I could probably, if I push that turbo to its max, which is probably, they're happy in like the 26-27 pound range. That's what a lot of guys run on Evos.
Probably hit 4, yeah.
I'd blast right past 4. I'd probably be around 6, but the motor can't handle it. So that motor's solid for about maybe 400 horsepower before you start having issues. So I'm gonna shoot it up to, I'm gonna try to go for like 17, 18 pounds, and see if I can't get at least 360, 370 to the rear wheels.
Put meth on it.
I thought about that. I did think about that, but I'm really concerned with my ability to keep that tank full.
That's a cheap way to. That's a cheaper way of saving them, like pushing the motor farther than what.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't heat up as much. You're not going to melt the rods or anything, which is the big thing with these cars. You know, when you start making a lot of power and you start putting a lot of boost to it, shit gets really hot, and that's when you start having issues.
He says, okay.
I mean, these cars at least.
Can you buy a built motor?
You could, but it's really not worth it. I mean, I could get forged pistons, forged crank, all that, the whole 9 yards, and just build the motor. But I really don't want to pull that motor out again. What I'll probably wind up doing, is the motors are cheap, so I can get a motor for about $350 from a junkyard.
For it to pop, and then
I'll just build it. Yeah, while the car's running, I'll just build it on the side, and then as soon as it blows, just pull that one out, junk it, and throw the built motor in, and make 500-600 horsepower.
Oh
so
yeah,
that car's got potential. It's gonna be a stupid car.
Horsepower, and it's gonna just
right now with 300 horsepower barely has traction at all. I mean, yeah. I can do a rolling burnout in second if I floor it, and like if I dump the clutch and floor it, I'm doing a rolling burnout.
Pictures or it didn't happen.
You'll see it this weekend. It'll probably do a rolling burnout with you in it because there's so much weight.
Oh yeah, we're gonna.
I probably would right now.
Stock clutch?
Huh?
Stock clutch?
No, it's got an upgraded clutch. It's an eBay clutch. Paid $150 for the clutch. It holds all 300 horse.
Roast eBay stuff, bro, but don't knock it till you try it.
I'm telling you, bro. I went full blown Honda with this one, and it's making power. I don't know how long that turbo is gonna hold, but
let it rip.
I'm gonna let it rip. I think with that being said, I think we should let this podcast rip.
Yep. Let it rip.
Well, that's our. How many cars was that? So I think I had 15 cars all said and done. You had 12.
11.
So that's 26 cars between the two of us, and I'm only 26 years old. He's 28 years old. So I mean, the amount of cars we've had in our lifetime, I don't think most people probably can't fathom going between that many cars.
That's a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of different cars too. They're not all the same genre, really.
Right.
They're all over.
Yeah, we got a lot of experience with different vehicles. I mean, everything from the daily
That's
driver
not
to the
including
high.
what we've actually driven, because we've driven
Oh
tons
God.
of
If,
on ours.
if
That's
we were to go
incredible.
through that list, I wouldn't even be able to make the list. I'd be 6 pages.
No.
It'll be a 5-hour long podcast. Easy.
Oh yeah.
Easy.
But
All right. Well, that was episode 4.
here's our stuff right here.
Yeah, right down there. Check those links. That's going to be our YouTube, our Facebook, and our Twitter. Follow us on each one. I'm going to be
All
updating
7.
you guys through Twitter, huh?
I said all 7 of you people watching.
All 7 of you, yeah. Our last video did really hot. But as we get more content pumped out, we'll be getting up there. We got another video. This one's gonna launch tomorrow, which is gonna be Thursday, right?
No, this one will launch tomorrow's Wednesday. So
Tomorrow's
this will drop
Wednesday.
Wednesday. We'll record Thursday for Friday, but we may have a special vlog going on. We're hitting the beach this weekend, so it'll be a little more, I guess, easier to watch, I guess, rather than
there's gonna be, instead of 2 guys sitting in front of a camera not really moving, we're gonna have so we go out to Anclote Island. If you know what that is, great for you. If not, that sucks for you, because Anclote Island's the shit. But we're gonna be out there partying. Hopefully that video doesn't. Hopefully it's suitable for YouTube, because when I drink, I don't really care who's watching.
We'll be A-okay.
A-okay. All right. And with that said, you guys have a good night. Well, good morning, whatever time of day it is.
Later. Catch y'all on the
Hasta
next
la
one.
vista.